Nave cohort, good morning. We are here on Saturday. We're going to be getting started with another official Pantheon Initiative training / teaching sort of seminar here as we go on with Saturday streams. Pilum Teaches DCS. We are here back with our F-4 Phantom 2. And we're going to be talking about air-to-air systems, weapons, basic radar, basic principles about how we do this, fly up a sortie, and actually do a little TAC view review afterwards. So let's go ahead and we will flip things over here to DCS. And we will take a good look here at our aircraft for today. And as soon as it comes up here in the capture, be just a second. All right. So here we are. We are at the Tonopah testing range up here in northern Nevada. This is the same NTTR mission that we've been flying a lot of our training sorties on today. But the air-to-air range I put up here near the TTR made a little more sense. Don't want to blow things up over town. So let's go ahead and do a little walk around with the jet. Today we're armed with Sparrows and Sidewinders and fuel. Given the proximity of the air-to-air range, we really don't need the fuel, but we're going to talk about it because you might be flying cap, a little bit long duration, a little bit longer distance, and it's going to be part and parcel of the whole gig. As this is a mid-1970s sort of setup, we are armed with Sidewinder Ls, the Lima variant, and Sparrow Fs, Foxtrot variant. It's going to be important to know which variant of the Sparrow you have on board the jet, as well as which Sidewinder. Of course, we've also got the 20mm autocannon up front. Vulcan living large there. And of course, our nose art. So some of the things that are important right away before we unpause things and really kind of get into the meat and potatoes of this. We've got this large centerline fuel tank. And it is important that it or any other centerline rack is present because if those things are present, you're going to lose the ability to shoot the front two Sparrow missiles on board the jet. So until this rack is jettisoned, there is an interlock that will stop you from shooting these other Sparrows. As you can kind of see, if you've got forward motion on the jet and the missile falls away because it has to come out of that semi-recessed area, that it could collide with whatever's on the center rack. Maybe a little less so if you've already dropped your bomb load, but these fins and everything else are extremely close to that fuel tank. So if they were to fall or whatever else, instead of having the missile oriented in such a way that it can see what it's looking for the radar, it might fail to guide, it might crack the fuel tank, it might bounce back up into the airframe, which at high speed is no good. So this centerline fuel tank is going to need to get jettisoned before we can use those front two weapons. Until then, we can only use the aft two stations. The jet knows that already, so you don't have to do anything special to make that happen. You just need to make sure that you get rid of that fuel tank prior to shooting the front two weapons. Sparrows and Sidewinders are the only weapons for air-to-air, for missiles at least, that we have available on this particular model of Phantom. There are newer Phantoms, I use that term extremely loosely, which have a capability, or were introduced with a capability, of being able to launch the AMRAAM missile, fitting into the same sort of semi-recessed stations, and perhaps on a wingtip pylon or a wing station, try and augment the cap capabilities of the aircraft as time went on. But for now, we're going to be focusing just on these weapons here. It is important, especially in the case of the Sparrow, that we know which variant of the weapon we have on board, because it does take a little bit of time before the seeker head is aligned with the target and is receiving enough energy and telemetry information and everything else to try and guide. For the Echo variant Sparrows, it doesn't matter which type of Echo you're carrying. If it's a Sparrow E or a Sparrow E2, you need 4 seconds of continuous lock on the radar before information is effectively transferred to the missile. Jester will count out 1 potato, 2 potato, 3 potato, shoot, to let you know when that process has taken place. But since Jester does this for all sparrows, the Foxtrot variant only requires 2 seconds of such time, and the Mike variant doesn't require it at all. As soon as you lock a target with the AIM-7M, you could squeeze the trigger and send that weapon on its way, and it will do what it needs to do. For the Sidewinders, we are carrying up the Lima or L variant of the Sidewinder missile today, which is an all-aspect weapon, meaning that it can shoot and track targets from a head-on aspect, from beaming, from behind. Its seeker head is sensitive enough to be able to see that. The only differences really between this variant of the Sidewinder and the M, or the more common Mike variant, are that the M has a better seeker head, better propulsor on it. The Limas are just about as good. They're not quite as resistant to flares as the M variant might be. So, just kind of keep those things in mind if you're doing something a little more historical. And obviously, since we're not using AIM-9X, they are not, hyper flexible off the rail to be able to engage something either in a high off bore sight type configuration, or to be used in a extreme turning fight, before needing to unload the aircraft in order to make sure that the weapon can travel far enough to do what it needs to do. Other variants of the Sidewinder missile that are available to the F-4 include the ancient AIM-9B or GAR-8 weapon, which is one of the first production variants of the Sidewinder. Has a very narrow seeker head, takes it a while to actually acquire onto its target. I believe at the moment we do have things like AIM-9J, AIM-9 Julie, AIM-9 P5. The Julie and the P5 are kind of export versions of that weapon that are also a little more all aspects. They are newer types of systems. But like the P3 or the P, the B, the J, those are rear aspect only type weapons, so they will only effectively lock on and track a target from behind. So you do have to kind of get yourself in that position first before being able to shoot. The Sparrows have like a listed range that's going to tell you things, especially if you're looking like Wikipedia, of anywhere between 25 and 40 or 50 nautical miles. That is probably the most ideal and optimistic information anybody will ever tell you about that weapon. For folks who've fired these things in DCS and have sent them someplace, broadly speaking, the Sparrow is technically a BVR weapon, but you're going to have a higher hit probability if you shoot it somewhere between 10 and 15 miles. You can send one at 18 to 20 miles, and if the target is either not paying attention or is otherwise occupied with other things, and you manage to guide it, it could get in there and crack him. But broadly speaking, that weapon is one that you want to try and wait a little bit closer to maximize your kill potential in that one. Having said that, though, let's go ahead and get into the jet, and we will talk a little bit about some basic radar things. This is not going to be a full-fledged tutorial where I talk about, side lobes and all kinds of radar theory that people who actually study this nonsense for either a living or for school have forgotten more things than I'm going to be able to tell you about the radar. But we are going to talk about some of the basics and where it applies directly into DCS. As usual, I've already done a cold start for the aircraft, and we are at a spot where we are already more or less ready to taxi.
Canopy down and locked, lights out and stripes aligned.
But before we go, there are some things that I want to talk about. First, this is that central radar display, which is going to tell us all of the information. It's a repeater for the much similarly sized one in the back seat with the Wizzo. This little indicator here on the left indicates which air-to-air system is set up. I will also tell you on the bottom there's an armed light that you'll see come on as we turn the master arm on once we're out and about doing stuff. To make sure that the gun is ready to shoot, you do have to have the gun pylon station selector up. Otherwise, all you need to be able to shoot the radar or heater guided missiles is to make sure you've got the right one selected on this display up here. Other things that are important is to make sure that the CW mode is on, which is the continuous wave. That is what the Sparrow is looking for when it is trying to track its target. After a few seconds of having CW on, the 4 stations, or 3 if you're carrying an ECM pod or a targeting pod, will light up for RDR, letting you know that those weapons are ready to go. This last one here, the CLIK, or CLLK, whatever that actually is down there. I guess I can zoom in on it, see what the little light says. Oh, yeah, CLTK. There we go. That is the light letting you know that you are carrying something on the center line, usually a tank or a centerline store, that is going to interrupt the ability to shoot the forward Mavericks or the forward Sparrows on the jet. These 4 stations do correspond to where they are on the jet. The front 2, or the upper 2 rather, are the front 2 on the jet. The bottom 2 are the rear 2 on the jet. And it will also display which heater missile is ready to roll on those pylons. And I believe it shoots outers on both first and then inners on both. This other switch here, interlock in and out, is also going to be important for what we're doing. Alrighty. Hello, raiding party. A lot of folks here for this morning. But the interlock switch is important when we're going to go up there and do some fighting. As if you are going to shoot a Sparrow missile at somebody and you are not quite in parameters, but you believe are probably in a good place, with the interlock in, it will not let you shoot until you're actually in good parameters and you got a shoot cue from the system. If you turn the interlock off, you can pull the trigger and the weapon will come off at any point. So it's kind of a use your best judgment there on that one. Typically, I have that one bound somewhere in the HOTAS so I can quickly hit that thing and be on our way. All right, let's go ahead and take off. We'll start cruising around for a little bit, talk a little bit more about the radar on the jet, and then we will get in here to get going to work. Appreciate the follow there, Boris97, as well as the raiding party you brought along with you.
All right, buddy, let's do it.
Are out.
So once we get up there, we'll talk a little bit about working with Jester and using the radar in its kind of normal search and scan mode, what some of its limitations are.
We planning to hit the deck on this flight?
Not really Jester, but we'll see what happens. And then also the 5 nautical mile auto acquisition mode. And a little bit of history about the F-4 and kind of the first attempt at doing HOTAS things. Radar's already, or radio rather, is already configured for being able to talk to our AWACS. It's also going to be important for reasons either you've already figured out or that we will soon talk about. It's just us here. We're just going to roll right in and take off.
Feet off the peg. Knots. 101, 102, 103. I'm just kidding.
There's 150. Got the nose up. Should fly away just about here anytime. We're going to go and set our HUD mode there to air to air. And what it will do is it will make the Pipper sort of free float a little bit there in guns mode. And, cage it a little bit as we transition to like radar or heat. A little bit of trim adjustment here. Just give me a nice gentle climb while we talk about things. Alright, so the radar display, it's a repeater again for the back seat. The little numbers here across this side on the right, 5, 10, 25, 50, that indicates the current scan range that you've got Jester looking at. You can also see it up here in the top left-hand corner of our display. There's a lot of noise going on that you can see, and that is very much to do with the fact that it's a radar that does not have like a pulse Doppler type filter system that you see in a lot of the newer aircraft, or a computer that will get rid of those things. So anything that the radar sees as any kind of energy coming back to the aircraft, it's going to put on the display. Which, for somebody riding around in the back seat, if you got a human wizzo back there with you, it can be a challenge to try and read the tea leaves. And you do a lot of things to try and make that work, like playing with the brightness and the contrast and seeing if you can't make a target kind of pop out and watching which one of those blobby returns starts moving closer and closer to the aircraft as you're flying hot to it. A lot of little different things to try and make sure that you're trying to track something. Of course, the little vertical bars there in the center is the actual selector for where Jester is kind of swinging things around and looking around. You can kind of hear the clicks every once in a while, and then like an equal bar pops up on this one. That is Jester pushing the interrogate button, trying to see if the target is friendly or hostile, or friendly or unknown, I suppose is a better route of looking at that one. Any of the friendly aircraft will show up with a bar top and bottom of their little radar return, and anything that's not squawking the right IFF code will not have one. Most of the interactions with Jester are going to involve using the contextual buttons for rapid acquiring of your target. A single short press of the Jester contextual menu will get him to follow the target. So he will put the little cursor on top of the target and he'll start moving around with wherever it's going. And as long as he can still track it and look for it. To actually lock your target, you'll do a long press on the contextual button, or he will attempt to capture that target and keep it locked up. And if you need to let that target go for any reason and return to a normal scan, that is a double press on the contextual button.
Okay, nails, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and nails, 3 o'clock.
Jester will also let you know what he's doing in those regards and whether or not he can do it. Sometimes he can't capture and hang on to the target, and that's just kind of a
traffic at our 3 o'clock.
back to life where that works. Increase our climb rate and our speed here a little bit. We got the gas. Some folks, especially folks a little newer to DCS, will think that the radar is either broken or not working or something along those lines, as a target just disappears if they had all locked up, and be confused by it. But what that is a combination of factors. The radar on the F-4 is capable of either a 1-bar or a 2-bar scan, and what that basically means is you can see the sweep working back and forth from time to time with Jester as he, finds things, closes things, changes the brightness and contrast for what he's looking at. And if you project a line out in front of the aircraft at any given angle, Jester can sweep that section of the sky with a 1-bar search. On the 2-bar search, you can kind of sweep the same sort of area of the sky, but it'll do like 1 bar at one altitude and 1 bar at the altitude either immediately above or below it. Some of the more modern aircraft can do like a 4, 6, or 8-bar search, which expands the radar's ability to look for stuff, but it takes the radar longer to go through that process before moving on. So in the F-4, it's a lot of manual type work. The back seater back there is going to be adjusting the elevation of the radar antenna, what direction is pointing, up or down, trying to find stuff and look around for things, and basically throw radar energy out into the sky, hoping for a good return. This is where working with the AWACS is important, especially for an older aircraft like the F-4, because you don't have the fancy situational awareness things like a data link with an AWACS that's up, just automatically reporting where targets are that it can see, and kind of a top-down display about where everything is and what the relationship with all those targets are. It's a simpler time with the F-4. So in a way, you do have to kind of listen to what the AWACS is telling you. And if you are in the back seat, you need to be adjusting your scan elevations and things to try and scan the altitudes in question. Or if you're the pilot working with Jester, either go through the Jester menu for the radar and tell him things like, I want you to change your scan elevation. I want you to change your scan type to either a narrow search or a wide search if you're trying to focus on things. Jester will do a lot of those things automatically and try and make the best effort he can. But he's an AI, so there's only so much that will accomplish for him. Generally speaking, looking down at a target, meaning that you're higher altitude than what the target is, so the radar has to point downwards to try and find the target, is going to be a little rougher on the F-4, especially because, again, no pulse Doppler filter, no computer system to help you on that one. It's all just radar energy, energy out, energy in, and here's the point on the display. So you can have targets get lost in ground clutter if you're looking down at them. It is easier to kind of tilt the radar in an upward direction, try and be under your target a little bit, and have just the clear blue sky behind it. Try and minimize false contacts and echoes and things like that. All right, so we'll talk a little bit too here about the cage modes, or the auto acquisition modes rather, for the aircraft. And we're just going to go back here and check our bindings and everything as we talk about these things, because obviously if I put them on my stick somewhere, I'm going to know where they are and what they do, but you may not, and you need to have to find these on your own and get them bound up. So the first one is the cage button. That's going to be important. Your nose wheel steering auto acquisition button, and the air refueling release button. Earlier I had mentioned that we're going to talk a little bit about the F-4 and kind of its first experiment with HOTAS, because all of those buttons are used in working the auto acquisition mode on the jet. So I'm going to go and hit the cage button first, and you can see the radar is now in a 5-mile search, narrow beam directly forward. I'm going to go ahead and put it in auto acquisition mode, and it offsets immediately to the left. You can see the elevation antenna going way up and down very quickly. And it's doing like a little bar sand search pattern here slightly to the left. Well, that is because I'm in gun. So that pinky switch for your weapon selector, gun looks to the left, heat looks about dead center, and radar looks to slightly right. Basically what it does is if you're looking like dead center, it's more or less this HUD glass right here in front. Left is slightly left of that by a few degrees, and right is slightly right of that by a few degrees. That's important because if I'm, I can see a target, oh, it's ever so slightly right from where I'm at, put it in radar real quick and it might latch the target. Always slightly left, I'll put it in gun real quick, it'll latch the target. Once you are hooked onto the target, you can use this as a weapon selector again and just select the right weapon for the right job. But while you are in auto acquisition mode, your pinky switch weapon selector is doubling as I want to scan left, I want to scan right, I want to scan center. All right, we're going to go look at the sun here for a minute. Because that air refueling disconnect button is also the uncage button for your Sidewinder. Which will let you go from that low or mid growl to high tone, letting you know that you've got a very solid lock, at least the missile thinks so. There are two ways to go back to a regular search scan. Once you are done using the auto acquisition mode, You can do a double press on Jester's contextual menu,
I'll continue with the standard scan pattern.
and he will bring it back to regular
Got
scan.
a new bogey, left 20, 30 miles, 22,500.
All right, so Jester has identified a bogey of some sort, which he's now interrogating.
Nails, yes, IFF returns on this one, he paints. 11 o'clock.
So he's identified that whatever that target out there is friendly. So if I go back to the auto acquisition mode, the other way that you can get him to go back to a regular scan is to take your weapon selector dial and rotate it through the 6 o'clock position, which will tell him to go back to a regular scan as well. All right, so we've talked about all those things. Let's go ahead and call an aircraft in, and we will go try and lock him up with a Sparrow and get him killed and see how that works. We are just going to keep it simple, as it's a teaching experience more than a let me get in here and try and fight for my life on purpose experience. Good morning, Chief. We'll wait on that aircraft to kind of putter about here, but it should be, broadly speaking, in the air-to-air range here that we've built, northwest of Tonopah.
Overlord, 1-1, Ford 1.
No, we got our coffee going this morning, Chief, so we're in good shape. All right, Bandit is 312 for 25 miles at 15,000 feet. We're going to come right here a little bit, and because I would rather be looking up at him than down, I want to try and descend to probably about 14,000
We
feet.
have a new bogey, left 15, 22 miles, 17,000.
Left 15, that's probably our bad guy. So you can see Jester's tracking him.
Target is hostile.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and give him a long press here in just a moment. We can see Jester has already switched this over to a narrow scan. We're going to go long press on him to lock him up.
Left 5, 20 miles. Good luck.
And I'm going to go ahead and select radar. And then we're going to pause. So we can talk about this screen and its indicators and what all it's trying to tell us. So the first things that we've got here is the TIE Fighter, which is your locked Bandit. The little vertical bars are, the little bug that a backseater is going to use to track the target and tell the radar what I want to attack. The flickering horizontal bar that you're going to see here is just the rest of the radar beam because it's in that narrow 5-degree, sort of scan mode. These two bars here on bottom are our range gates. On more modern aircraft, you see that usually displayed right up on top of the HUD. Where you're going to have your max range, your no escape zone, and minimum range displayed. That's what those two bars are emulating there for it. The circle is the constraint limits for the weapon itself. If the aircraft is outside of the circle, broadly speaking, the missile doesn't think it can maneuver to kill the target. And this dot out here is the projected intercept for what you're doing right now. It will also show you what range you're scanning at, so you know what kind of scale you're looking at. This guy here is somewhere between 23 and 25 miles. As he gets a little bit further down and a little closer to the jet, you'll see Jester transition us from a 50-mile scan to a 25-mile scan to a 10-mile scan and so on as we get closer to the aircraft. Closure rate should be in this top right-hand corner as far as what the radar is going. Hey, this is what I think we're doing. It is not always accurate, so it is, it does behoove you at some point to try and double check and correlate through other things to make sure you've actually got a good lock as compared to like a ghost return. So at the moment we are closing on him a little bit, but he's not quite fully hot to us, and the only reason why I say that is we don't have an RWR contact from his radar lighting us up. We have an in-range that will light up here when we are in range and in good parameters for whatever it is we've got. We've also got shoot cues, much like the F-15, that are going to light up to let us know we're in good parameters. And there's also the HUD's little range bar here on the right-hand side of our pipper that will start ticking down as the missile believes that we are in range. At this point for the backseater, it's usually something to try and do to make sure that you've got the best lock possible and the best range information for your pilot to make sure that the aspect is correct so that it's showing the right range gate, because that's what that one's controlled through. You know, if it's a head-on shot and you're coming head-to-head, you want to make sure that it's in a, you know, that nose sort of position so that the pilot knows, hey, he's coming straight at us. We can shoot this missile from a little further away and still have good odds of hitting our target, as compared to the target being either a beam or cold to us, where it is a tail chase, and we have to be a lot closer because, you know, he's moving away from us just worth trying to throw a missile at him. So let's go ahead and put the master arm on, unpause the thing here, and we'll see if we can shoot this guy at a little bit further range out with the Sparrow. We do still have our tanks on board the jet. The emergency jettison I have is set up already. But just to cover it, in case you are on a long cap mission and you're just looking to fly for a while and get rid of the tank, this station selector would need to be put all the way down to the 6 o'clock position, or I want to jettison stores. This is where you can jettison left forward or right forward Sparrow, left wing or right wing Sidewinder, left aft or right aft Sparrow, or stores, which is the 6 o'clock position kind of hidden by this jettison handle. You would also make sure that you have the right pylon selected for what you want to get rid of. So if I just want to get rid of the centerline fuel tank, I would hit the center, rotate this to the 6 o'clock position, push to jet, rotate this back to off to make sure it's safe, and then deselect center. The E-jet is going to take every store pylon on the jet off except for air-to-air missiles. So it'll jettison your special pylons if you're carrying them on board. It will jettison your bombs. It will get rid of all of the fuel tanks at once. Everything but your air-to-air weapons is attached to the E-jet by default. All right, let's have at it. We're down to a 25-mile scale. I don't think the bandit has quite noticed us just yet, so since I've got time, I'm going to go ahead and select my center station, rotate that to the down position, push to jet. The CL tank light goes out, meaning that all four Sparrows are ready to go. And since I'm carrying wing bags, I'm going to go ahead and just make sure we're using those now too, so we can maximize the fuel in the jet before we get into a dogfight type situation. I'm going to check in with AWACS here again real quick, because again,
Overlord 1-1, forward 1.
what we have might be either a cold contact or a false return. 276 for 16, that is roughly right. So we should have a good lock. He should be slightly above us. And I can't quite see the speck that is him yet. But he is starting to come after us now. We see that closure rate really going up. I'm going to go full afterburner. He's crossed the max range line.
12 o'clock.
So he's in good range. We're in good parameters. The dots there are in range light is up. We're going to go and do a trigger pull here, Fox 1. That Sparrow is tracking. There's our boy. I'm going to stay with him here. And splash. There's one scattered farmer for the wins.
Oh, we just lost lock. I'll continue with the standard scan pattern.
Adjuster panics a lot about things like a lost lock. But we shot him down and he is dead, so I'm not actually on a server right now. I'm doing single player because that lets me pause and things while we are talking about and teaching things here like we do on Saturday morning. But broadly speaking, when I am up and about, we have the Pantheon Initiative servers. There are 4 of them that are up. If you look for Pantheon, you should be able to find them very quickly. And those are usually on like Syria or Kola Peninsula for the ones that are not passworded. And then there's a couple of them that are for events and things like that PI runs. Oh, we got somebody else behind us. So let's go ahead and eject our stores. Yeah, and he got us with gunfire. That's what I get for talking and not paying too much attention. This is one that I've built. I use it as a training yard. So it's Pilum's training yard on NTTR. Alright, he has done shot us, and the aircraft is a lot less responsive. See if I can't spoil a shot and maybe force an overshoot.
Twelve o'clock now.
I missed him skating past us.
Nails, 11 o'clock. And nails, 11 o'clock.
Oh, we are hurt real bad. Yep, that's getting to be a little uncontrollable. All right, it's time to leave the office for now, but we'll be back in just a moment. Yes, this is the Nevada map. This is the NTTR, the Nevada Testing and Training Range. All right, let's go ahead and choose ourselves another slot in Tonopah. We'll go through the startup real quick and continue with playing with the bad guy. Those are Nellis. Oop. As far as why DCS might keep crashing, suggestions are anywhere along the lines of making sure your drivers and everything are up to date. Maybe run a repair on it if there's missing files or modified files there that are causing problems. All right. All right, let's go ahead and get ourselves.
Hey, what alignment do you want? Okay, stored heading.
That. Won't need that either. Get myself the right port number and put on my skin with my name on it.
Request rearming.
Hey, there's my helmet.
Copy. Roger. Carts are loaded. Rearming complete.
You got the Jennies going? I can start the alignment.
Sounds good, Jester. Let's do exactly that. If you could, please.
Airspeed down and locked. Lights out and stripes are aligned.
Okay, so it'll be a couple minutes while he's doing that.
Slats out. Flaps down.
I might have to interrupt what I'm doing to go ahead and go pull those up to look at the whole thing, because it's been a long time since anybody's asked me about some of the PC specifications and the exact, processor speed and what video card I've got in the machine. So rather than interrupt the stream for all of that, good enough to run DCS is really where those are at. I mean, you could say that about any patch with DCS, though. There's always a lot of minor issues, quirks, hang-ups, hitches, that kind of thing, which is usually why I recommend, if something isn't working properly, to go try and run the repairs, see if maybe it's an issue with how files were downloaded, because their patching system and everything else is a little problematic. Sometimes it's running on ancient 20-year-old code at this point. But usually if it is like crashing on start or crashing on a mission load, either there's script errors that are happening in whatever mission it is that you've downloaded and are trying to fly, because, I don't know, an update happened and the mission editor or map maker hasn't come back and made the appropriate changes. Sometimes when DCS does a patch, they change how they handle certain things. Something with the new fog system. Okay, well, if a map has fog on it, that might be an issue there too. For Pantheon, we've been using the new dust system, and that has not caused any problems. I know if you have fog set to auto right now, Petrovich and George for the helicopters won't see anything. But as far as an actual, crash, I've not seen or heard anything with that myself, but again, I wouldn't put it past it.
You can go primary sync now. Alignment's done. Ready to taxi.
Alright. Alignment's complete. We're on primary sync. I'm going to pull the chocks off the jet.
Roger.
And we'll go play with our other farmer that's still out there.
Yes, sir. Chalk's out. You're all set? Looking good? Have a good flight? And disconnect.
I've used the new fog system on like my 1989 centric KP-89 mission that I've got running on Pantheon from time to time. At some point I should upload those actually to the DCS site so other folks can download it. Okay, I've not tried anything on Persian Gulf or Caucasus, but especially in Caucasus case, they've really said that they're not going to do anything new with Caucasus, and it's kind of using a lot of really old technology on the Caucasus map. PG has got the new lighting stuff there, but as far as turning off the new fog effects, that is entirely up to the mission editor. That's not something that you, the player, have control over. I know sometimes space and commonality is an issue, but given the age of the Caucasus map, and the age of the Persian Gulf map, and even to a lesser extent the age of the Nevada map, a lot of those are not receiving the kind of updates that Kola and Syria are getting, or even South Atlantic, the only thing keeping poor Rasbam afloat.
Okay, nails. 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock.
You know, those are all using a lot of the newer technologies and things like that, so they do receive regular updates. So Caucasus might be one to avoid. Persian Gulf might be one to avoid. If you've got the room for it, Kola's a beautiful map. A lot of history, that kind of deal with that one too. Syria is a beautifully well done map. A lot of different terrain features. Really, the only issue I've got with Syria
nails 5 o'clock and nails 5 o'clock
is it's yet another in a series of brown maps. You know, I live out in the NTTR general area, and I'm used to seeing the desert, and the desert is a beautiful place. Morning, Frost. But we've got Syria, we've got Sinai, we've got Persian Gulf, we've got NTTR, we've got Afghanistan, we've got the Eye in Iraq. And I say that because those maps are very much not complete and are not going to be complete for a while. Now, Afghanistan looks very pretty. It is a different kind of desert, and I like that. But I find it a little questionable with their current
11 o'clock.
Their current strategy there on releasing a quarter of a map at a time. But at any rate, yeah, there are a lot of desert-based maps, and it's nice to have some real greenery that is not the Marianas, because that's super tiny and super water. And not Caucasus, because I've seen that map since Flanker 2.0 and Lock-On Modern Air Combat, which are also products that this company put out, and it's why the Caucasus was the first map that they really did anything with. They just copy and pasted all that stuff over. But Nevada was the second map that they put together. That's where they did the big merger from server version 1.5 to 2.6.
21 miles, 14,000.
And then Persian Gulf was after that. So those three maps are probably the oldest ones.
Bingo, good luck.
And even with the new lighting technologies and things on them, maybe the fog is causing problems just on those. So you might want to stick to some of the newer maps for now. Yeah, I would argue that's a really good use for Marianas. Having all the extra water does make it really good for naval type stuff. It's just a matter of having good places to do any kind of strike work or terrain to hide behind when you're doing fighter type work. Okay. Box 1. I'm going to go ahead out on a limb and say that that's probably not tracking anything or anybody.
Oh, I got nails on arrows, 12 o'clock.
Forward 1, request bogey dope.
Six o'clock now.
136 for 1.
Lock, I'm looking. Okay, back to normal scan.
I know you're not happy with me, sweetheart. That's okay. We auto-acquired on something here, but it's probably a ground return. Yep, there's our friend. See if we can't split the difference there with him. Oh boy, that was close. The shrill beeping is the angle of attack warning
I've got nails, 11 o'clock.
as it passes through 15, 20, and 25 units. Nope, CFIT. Got lost trying to follow him and wasn't flying the aircraft. All right. Before we go back and do that, let's actually just take a minute and look at the first one that we did as we had greater success. And we'll pull up TAC View to do it. I'm going to review that real quick. And then we'll probably jump up on one of the Pantheon Initiative servers, which are open to the public. I might need to do a mission reset on that too, so we'll see where we get to here in just a minute. All right, let's go and flip the stream over to the TAC View. And we'll talk about this one here real quick. So for those who don't know or haven't had it, TAC View is a free program that you can pay a little bit of money for and get some additional features out of. But for the most part, it's free. I do recommend supporting them, though, because the guy does good work. Or gal, whoever it is who takes care of it. And what it does is it takes telemetry information from DCS, from Falcon BMS, from IL-2 Battle of Stalingrad or Battle of X, a couple of other little games, and it will put this into like a 3D model type environment where you can see what's going on, what happened, what went where, what went wrong. Some of it is dependent upon whether or not the server allows for this information. In a lot of places where there's PvP going on, usually if they have it at all, there's going to be a 10-minute delay. Otherwise, they will block out those kinds of things. That's something the server can control as far as what data gets exported. But if you're flying on your own, or if you're flying on a server that allows it and you're looking to try and use it as a way of taking a look and self-reviewing your stuff, it's an excellent program for that kind of purpose. All right, so we took off, doing a lot of talking and teaching as we're doing our little orbits and slow climbs. A4s that I've got on this map are out there doing their own thing. So we're going to look at our first engagement. Part of it is my fault. I forgot that on this particular map that I've got and the mission that I've got built for it, that I spawn pairs and not singles. So rather than looking for an extra member of the fight, I was fixated on, yeah, cool, I killed this guy, we're good. I can talk about things for a minute, and then he slotted in behind me. So what we've got is we've got our aircraft here. It's showing, because I've got it selected at the moment, all of our different telemetry values, the fuel flow. It doesn't display that for all aircraft, but also shows like G-load, where your head tracking is looking, which is what this kind of teal sort of crossed on the end of it line is roughly the center of my head tracking. I can look through the cockpit, and I can kind of see where the HUD glass was and kind of where the center of my field of view was, which is usually the radar display, so it always looks a little low. A lot of powerful things you can do with it. I can also select another target that will show me its telemetry information. I can put it in like a dogfight mode where it will kind of focus on the fight and keep both aircraft in the field of view. A lot of useful little things you can do with it. So we rolled in and we're tracking our target. I got rid of the centerline fuel tank. There's that green box falling away from the aircraft. There's our 2 ship of farmers. They've recognized that they are in trouble as we closed about 13 miles. There goes the first weapon. I'm actually shooting at him. Tracks, cruises right on out there, and it hits him. I never saw him until it was too late. And why do I still have an RWR contact? Oh, he's behind me. But since we're in the process of reviewing it, and you know, life isn't perfect, so occasionally I get killed. Sometimes I'm doing stupid things. He rolls into me. I'm completely not paying super attention to him, but then I look backwards at some point and recognize that he is there. I get rid of the rest of my stores because now I'm in the middle of the dogfight, but I have just given him my entire plan form. I am rolled up, making myself the fattest possible target, and he pulls a little bit of lead. And gives me a short burst from his cannons, and I eat some 30 mil. And at that point, the damage is a little fatal for me because I can't fight him. I'm on my own, so I can't call for help. And he's just in the control position behind me. There's not a lot I can do for it. I'm trying to control the aircraft. It's taken a lot of additional rudder inputs to try and keep it remotely level. As soon as I put speed on the jet, things start happening bad. I do force the overshoot, but I'm looking in the wrong spot. He passed underneath me rather than over me. And I'm also looking in the wrong spot way out here as he flies through the blind spot on me in the cockpit. Absolutely a my fault kind of moment. As he recovers his knots and airspeed and everything else and just lets me fly away and decide that it's probably time to leave the office. Well, we'll look at our second one here too. We take off, cruise out, we go head to head. And I have him locked, but as we're going to talk a little bit about some of the different issues with the radar, he is flying perpendicular to my flight path, or nearly so. It makes it very difficult for a radar to hang on to that lock. In a modern aircraft, what happens is the aircraft is flying in the notch or in the filter. And what that ends up doing is, as far as your aircraft is concerned, on a more modern system, the way that it filters out information that is not important to your aircraft is to go, is this flying at the same speed or is this moving at the same speed as my own aircraft? If it is, that's a ground return. I'm going to ignore it. So if you are trying to fool somebody's powerful pulse Doppler type radar, you fly in a shape similar to this so that you're trying to fly as if you are a ground return and it will drop the radar lock. It is not always successful, especially if you are already close in on the target where there's more radar energy that's still being reflected off of you and the aircraft can see that. But if you're out, doing the BVR fight beyond visual range, and you're trying to close distance with the target or have them close distance with you so you can get into a better position to try and shoot them, you might fly in a pattern like this to try and hide from their radar so that they can't just drill you with a missile while they're getting closer. I fire the Sparrow at what I believe to be is a good, solid target, because with the F-4, it found something. It's entirely likely that it found something way out here, like a mountain range or something similar, and it got confused. So the Sparrow is flying towards whatever that's supposed to be, but it was not the target, because again, he was flying in that bad position where it's hard for the radar to see him at all. We get into the merge, throw off the tanks, as I was anticipating. Get up here, I'm going to find him real quick. Flying is really quick to put a lot of energy on the missile, and the missile just sailed off into oblivion. The one circle fight. Gets in behind me, I'm trying to throw him off. But I'm also loading my aircraft up very badly as we are that close to the ground. He gets in behind me. Again, I get into bad parameters while I'm trying to look for him. And we crash into the hill. Bottom line there with that one is I forgot the very first rule of flying, which is to fly the jet. Mostly because I'm trying to do walk and talk at the same time. But the good news is that I'm also more than willing to sit down and show you where I went wrong as compared to where I went right. So that's what we got. The major issues there with the weapon system, especially in the F4, it's an older radar, and occasionally it either locks the wrong target, finds a ground return, finds a speck out in the sky that's providing some kind of radar energy, and it goes, that one, that's the one that I want. And just like in a more modern aircraft, if you put something in STT for single target track, you lose your situational awareness about where everything else is because you're not getting that radar information. For the F4 in particular, the biggest things that I can say for helping you out in the middle of those kinds of fights is use the AWACS a lot, communicate with it, understand what it's telling you as far as where targets are, what their altitude is, what their aspect to your target is, because those things will help you orient your aircraft in such a way where you can actually fight it. If you watch a lot of the older, like early 2000s dogfight shows that focus on the Vietnam War and things like that, you'll hear some of the pilots, some of the good ones, especially like Steve Ritchie, talk about communicating with the AWACS. You know, they told me they were over here. We're going to go over here. We turned the radar on and we found this guy. And yeah, relying on the AWACS to try and be your situational awareness and a lot of radio chatter back and forth is kind of the norm for those sorts of things. But at least we got one good kill in today on that one while we're doing the teaching segments of the stream. So we're going to go ahead and transition out. We'll pop in on the Pantheon Initiative server, probably on Syria. I am going to take a brief moment to reset that server. So I'm going to close TACView down, set things back up for the game capture. And it'll be a brief moment while I log into the actual server box to give it a quick restart. So take care of that real fast. Okay. We've been talking about COLA. I think I will set this up for Torn Strike, which is a mission that Nixon has put together. He's another person who does a lot of the mission building work for Pantheon Initiative like I do. And there we go, Torn Strike version 19. It is loading, so that will be on the PI Pantheon Initiative main public server here in just a minute or two as the server box resets. Waiting on it and verifying that it finishes loading, and then I'll flip back over to DCS and connect to the server. The other things that I like about the COLA map in particular, they really do handle the hemisphere position, you know, it's way up north, and some things like days where it's permanent darkness and days where it's permanent daylight, based on what time of year it is actually set for. Okay, that is now running. Go ahead and close out of the server box. And we can flip this back over to DCS. Go ahead and hop on out of NTTR. Might have to make the next Pilum Teaches DCS segments on using things in the mission editor, which is always fun. Building some simple missions and adding layers of triggers to them to make them really work. Alright, does the entire server box need a reset because it has been on for too long? I believe that is the case, so let me take care of that real quick too. It's quick, it doesn't take terribly long for that thing to restart. I mostly just have to get in and do it. So we'll log back in, get that rebooting. There's been something interesting to see lately is how much more frequently that's happening, where it will drop off the master server list for a little while after the server's been running for more than a day. All 4 servers are starting up. And looks like that's running, so let's go ahead and flip back over, refresh the list. And hilariously, it is running on both free missions and main public, but I'm joining the main public server. All right. Blue Coalition, join the server, dynamic spawn slots. We're going to go to Calyx. Our trusty ancient friend. Use the Euro 1 paint scheme. And let's see. Want a couple of Mavericks for the boat. Dun, 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 dun. Bring along some bullpups. 7 mic, and 117s. 7M, 7M, M. Maverick on the opposite pylon. M. Bullpup on the opposite pylon. Give it a minute to load some textures. So we're doing the whole streaming and playing at the same time. And then we'll go attack a Silkworm site to start off our time here on the Torn Strike mission. But it is on the Pantheon Initiative main server, which is open to the public. So if folks are inclined to fly, certainly free to come up. Torn Strike is one that has several mission areas where there are things going on. They don't need to be hit in any particular order. But Nixon has some things set up on some randomized triggers, so there's not always aircraft up. Some of the different objectives are not always in exactly the same places.
What alignment do you want? Roger, stored heading will do.
Fun in its simplicity, as it were. So for our first sortie, we're going to go ahead and take off, cross through this inner channel here, and as it loads more of the map textures there on that one, we're actually going to start by attacking a Silkworm site, which does have a couple of patrol corvettes out in front of it. So we're going to try and get in there. We might tap the corvettes on the way in if we can see them as an opportunity. And then otherwise try and bomb and get rid of the Silkworm site, which will allow our supply ship to come in so that if one of the helicopter boys wants to get in and start moving supplies to this forward base at Torn, Chemitorino, that base really doesn't have anything at it in terms of supplies except for gas. And then we'll start making our way inland. All right, load some starter cartridges here.
Roger.
Appreciate the follow there. Everybody who's been following there. We got several I got to thank here after Boris.
Loaded, sir.
We got Katie Chaos, Jors 182, Joe the Bro, and thank you incoming ad break, and Machine Gun 417. Just kind of piled right in there on top of the name as I'm trying to read them off. All right. Igniters are held, and we're going to go ahead and tap the starters. Bang, bang with the shotgun shells. Go ahead and set the 45 mil dots first, as I'm anticipating the Mavericks being the first things off the jet.
Canopy down and lock, lights out, and stripes aligned. Copy.
I'm going to preemptively set my ripple distance and ripple quantities for my bombs. Radio's tuned to the AWACS, the IFF system is on. I'm going to put in my usual transponder code of 42, so that's the life, or meaning of life and everything. And 76 for maximum freedom. 1776 rather. It is early morning, so the sun should be on its way up. By early morning, I more mean it's mid-morning in the wintertime, so the sun has only just come up. Adjust our HUD brightness a little bit there. Alright, so for our first sortie, we were coming up with a pair of Mavericks that I'm intending to use on the boat. A pair of AGM-12 manual command line of sight guided bullpups on the outer pylons. Not looking to use those on something like a boat, but if we got a general target area, I can go throw those at that. And then some World War II vintage 750-pound M117 bombs on the center line.
You got it. Steering set for diversion.
Set our takeoff trim here while I'm thinking about it. Have to get in the habit of streaming some of our larger mission sorties too as we get into those. Now that the holidays are over, the groups can get back together and start with the flying. Still got chocks on the jet.
Roger. Yes, sir. Chalk's out. And you're all set, sir. Flaps down and disconnecting.
All right, let's kick some ass.
Beautiful winter's day here on the Kola Peninsula. A lot of interesting places to fight here on this one, especially as you push to the eastern edges of the map into northern Russia, like Murmansk and Polyarny and that whole area.
We doing some trench running on this flight?
A lot of that section of the map is rather well modeled in detail, but they've been adding things with just about every patch. New runways, some of the old 1990s era Bass 100 or Bass 90 type stuff. Hello, Machine Gun. Welcome to the server. And so those road bases and things like that have been a lot of fun to integrate and work with and all that stuff. Very pretty map. And Nixon's put together a fairly solid mission for getting up and having a little bit of facet. this playing at home, it's a funny acronym for fuck around and call it training. Okay. Cross over here into the active. On the right and take off into the sun. We do have the in-game radio going. 266 is the AWACS channel.
Engine's good, airspeed off the peg. 80 knots. Clear speed 100.
A little bit of windy. Little crosswind.
We've got nails, 9 o'clock.
And we're up.
Gears moving. Flaps up. Gear up.
Alright, the afterburner a little longer here on our initial climb out. And we'll roll over a little bit towards the Silkworm start and start cruising. We have a little bit of distance to travel. Looks like 58 or so miles.
Mud, 11 o'clock. AAA.
Mavericks are ready, and since these are the D variants that have the infrared seeker head, go ahead and adjust our brightness and contrast a little bit, so it should make some of these things stand out a little more. And then pick the nose up and get to our cruising altitude, so we're not burning quite as much gas as we get there. Since it is cold out here, turn that pitot heat on. We're about due for a weather change on this mission too. Had these kind of clouds and gentle snows for a little minute. Maybe time for a little more thicker clouds and some rain, and who knows, maybe we can change the time of year a little bit to get the green out here again. We do like that they include the winter textures too, though. And machine gun, if you want to get in there and hit something like the train yard or barb capture, anything like that, feel free. Go anywhere, do whatever it is you'd like to do. The only thing that I would say about like the IED factory mission is that the map marker for it is not exactly on its position. You'll have to hunt around and search for it a little bit. We're up here about 17,000 feet, and we're going to put the autopilot on and the altitude hold. Back off the power a little bit. Yeah, we're about 29 miles out, so we'll cruise for 9 to 12 miles or so. And then we'll drop down out of the clouds, see if we can't find those boats. And then attack the silkworm site proper. My intentions after shooting the Mavericks are to kind of assess what all's going on. Probably drop bombs first
11 o'clock.
using the DT mode. Oh, machine gun disconnected there.
We have a friendly, 8 o'clock, 12 miles.
Alright, I'm set up on pairs. Come off the autopilot. Reset our master caution. Down and back through the cloud layer. Alright, so there's the main city island. Those should be our actual silkworm islands. And there's our boats. Zoom in a little bit with the seeker head there on the Maverick. Trying to fine-tune that contrast a little more. They're still out of range for me to get a hold of them with the Maverick. But I am pressing that air refueling disconnect, which is also, as we talked about earlier, the AIM-9's uncage the seeker head button. Kind of doing the same thing for the Maverick, where it'll let me slew it using the hand control. And as I release it, it attempts to lock, if, you know, whatever it is it could find.
Yeah, I'd say that's mud, 10 o'clock. AAA.
So rather than a push to lock, it is a release to lock. Got about 6,000 feet to play with here. I think we had him there for a second. Yep, good parameters. And here we go, rifle. Shoot at his buddy in the back. And rifle. One hit, and there's the other. It may not have been enough to sink both of them, but at the very least they'll think about it for a minute. Alright. Do want to drop bombs next. We're going to go into DT mode for that.
Goddamn, we've got mud. 11 o'clock. SA8.
DT is a radar-assisted bombing mode for the F-4, which we've talked about in previous videos. Simple to use, very effective, and allows for some very quick bombs on target. I'm going to attack that first island there on the left. We kind of want a little bit of altitude here before we do it. And it's going to all happen here very quickly. We're rolling in. I'm going to do a contextual long press here.
I'm captured.
He's captured the target for radar ranging purposes. I'm going to hold the pickle button now. Pitch the aircraft nose up. Bombs came off the jet. And we're going to roll away before the ZU-23 down there shoots at us. And I would say that was some pretty good effect. Good spacing on our bombs. We've got some targets on that other island that's going to be our next victim. Not everything is destroyed on that one, but we do have a couple of bullpups on board once we get rid of our last 3 bombs. I'm going to drop a pair here on this other island first. Drop our single bomb someplace where it looks like it might do the most work. Alright.
And captured.
Captured, and pickle. Goes up. Bombs away. Okay. That'll do it. The Silkworth site is destroyed. I think that's probably the fewest amount of weapons I've put down on that target to knock it out. Well, we're here. Let's go ahead and divert to train station, which is kind of pseudo nearby.
Steering set for diversion.
It's more or less out through there. You know, we might actually check on the boats too. Should be able to bomb a boat. For D-Team node, the bombing table's unnecessary. DT mode gets everything it needs from the radar ranging in the nose of the jet. And where you're at with it when you push the pickle button. And it's an extremely accurate, very cast-like setting there that you can use. All right. There's our train yard. See it with the kind of bow shape with all the different tracks there. I've got 1 bomb left. Let's see what we can do with it here. Alright, so we're going to do a long press. It's going to tell radar to capture the area with the radar.
Captured.
Tell Jester to capture the area with the radar. And press and hold pickle. Nose is going to come up. Bomb comes off the jet when the parameters are good. I'm going to roll out and away here for it. Hopefully we got enough bomb fall time here. Yeah, we can look at it. You can kind of see it's going just about where I had pushed the pickle button. And we've managed to destroy some targets. All without having touched the bombing table even once.
Mud, 6 o'clock. AAA.
And that's it for those weapons. Let's go ahead and pull up the bullpups and set it for HEM-12. Direct.
I see a new bogey. Right 50, 28 miles, 12,500.
This might be a little more risky because I have to actually steer the bullpup
IFF.
to its target. But we got him on board, so we'll use him. We'll see if we can't kill at least something with it. To be perfectly honest with you, if I hit anything with it, I'll be happy. And I think I'm going to aim for where the junction of that train yard kind of meets up with the town. There's like a tower or something down there you can kind of barely see against the snow. Alright, let me reset my pipper here to 17 units. Should get me kind of close to the center for it, but broadly speaking, we're going to be playing Watch the Flare. And here we go, rifle. And we're steering with the hand control unit. Didn't quite get to where we need to go.
Mud, 3 o'clock. SA8.
See if I can't find a little... Yeah, there's a couple of tanks down there or something. Right there on the outskirts of that town. See if we can't ding them. And you can see why some of these older, like late 50s Cold War, early Cold War weapons, kind of in use at the start of the Vietnam War, really didn't have the staying power, and why we developed things like Maverick rifle. Oh, those are tracers. We're going to try and throw this at that. It didn't quite get to where it needed to go. Let's pick up the pace and get out of here for a minute. Hello, tracers, my old friend. Things I actually use the bombing table for, if I'm being totally honest here, once I start setting myself up for a course for home. Because other than the gun, we're out of weapons. It's time to go home and get more.
We have a new bogey. Right 5, 19 miles, 16,000.
Get up to cruise altitude real quick, then we'll put the altitude hold on it so I can screw around with the table.
Target paints, it is a buddy. Okay, that's a contact. Left 5, 17 miles, 12,500.
They're friends.
IFF returns on this one. He paints. Heads up, nails 5 o'clock. Okay, got a bogey. Right 30 degrees, 15 miles, 20,000. And oh, nails.
Okay,
5
so now we're
o'clock.
in altitude hold.
Yes, IFF returns on this one. He paints.
So the bombing table comes up with right control B. The things that I tend to use it for, one, if I'm... Hang on a second.
KC-135, 12 o'clock, 10 miles.
Chester, my friend, I'm having a conversation. All right, so if I'm in the back seat, I will use it for literally anything that we're doing bombing table stuff for because I've got the time. Plus, there's a lot of automatics that Jester is taking care of every once in a while with that, depending upon what you set on this bombing table. It's not all pilot-oriented. So if I'm in the back seat, I use this table a great deal more. However, in the front seat, there's not a lot that I need it for. If I need to do something in direct mode for some reason, I can get in here and dial in all the settings and then try and fly the pattern exactly correctly so that the pipper is aligned properly and everything goes where it's supposed to go. But I will use it for target find. So I can tell Jester what kind of run-in speed am I looking for, what kind of GBU am I dropping, what the target altitude is. Release altitude is important, but not as much as the target's altitude, especially if you're playing on like Syria or in northern Nevada where the altitude is upwards of 5,000 feet, mean sea level. So it becomes important to make sure that you're, not bombing anticipating zero when your target is 5,000 feet higher. I will also tend to use it for the WRCS AGM-45 for the same reason. I want to try and tell the computer, hey, I'm expecting the target to be at this altitude. It's bad enough trying to aim a Shrike at something to kill it. So any kind of edge that you can give to the target, the better. Sometimes I'll use it too if I'm coming in to do something in DT mode and I don't want the first bomb to hit the target. Like I want bomb number 4 and a longer stick to be the one that's actually under the pipper. But for the most part, for a lot of the things that I tend to do in the aircraft, especially if I'm using dive toss, DT, lock the radar on the target, push the pipper button, pull back on the stick a little bit, listen for the bombs to come off the jet. You can do that in damn near any flight profile. You can be low and trying to toss bombs a little distance. You can be higher altitude and doing a little bit of a dive on towards the target. It's a great way of keeping outside of the reach of gun platforms, IR platforms, man pads, anything along those lines. If I'm doing buddy lasing type work, where I'm anticipating somebody else spotting the target for me, I'll just use direct and not make any changes to the bombing table and do it kind of by feel. A lot of what I tend to do in that situation is place a map marker over the general target area. Like, for example, let's pretend that somebody named Femur is sitting here near this town and he just happens to be in a Kiowa warrior. And Femur's out here and he's looking at stuff. He finds himself a target. And he goes, hey buddy, hi Pilum, I've got your target here. It's a ZU-23-2 gun truck sitting out in the open, just west of the railroad tracks northern end. All right, cool. That's a great talk on, and it's important to me because I need to be close enough for the bomb to be able to see the target. But what I might do is put down a map marker like the one that's already here for train yard, and then use my navigation tape to go, all right, I'm within about 5 to 7 nautical miles up at about 20,000 feet with a GBU-10. Pickle GBU-10. I'll just use direct mode so that the bomb comes off the jet as soon as I push the button rather than waiting for any kind of a delay. Because at that point, the bomb will fall off the jet. Its 17 degree or so field of view in the seeker head should be able to find the laser at that altitude. And do any of the steering that it needs to do to get to the target to kill it. In which case, the bombing table is also kind of useless. It's not a completely useless tool. In fact, it's an extremely useful tool, especially if you're the wizzo in the back. Because, you come up in here and you go, okay, I want to go direct, and I'm dropping M117s. My run-in speed is going to be about 550 knots true airspeed. My release altitude, I'm going to be up at 12,000 feet. My target's at 400 feet off the ground. It's kind of, sea level-ish. The current aircraft weight's about 36,000 pounds, and I want a dive angle of 30 degrees. Cool. That's all great and wonderful. The pilot's going to have to set this actual sight depression. But if it was a matter of, I want my third bomb on the target. All right, well, I'm going to come down here and do third bomb on target. The release advance is 100 milliseconds. So I'm going to have to actually encode that on the jet from the back seat in order to do it, whereas here you just tell Jester to do it and he does it correctly. And if you're doing anything more complicated with the bombing, or trying to toss bombs or anything along those lines, and you need the different release advances and things like that to be working, if you're having an actual backseater, they're going to need to consult the bombing table to make all that magic happen. So, bombing table, extremely useful for the human backseater, but for a lot of what I tend to do if I'm flying just by myself with me and Jester, somewhat less so. Speaking of what, Jester, let's go ahead and get him talking to me again. Other unique Jester quirks, especially if, trying to keep a little bit on the subject, at least for the air-to-air stuff we've been doing today. Air refueling. Because of the way Jester looks for your orientation behind the tanker, and the way a pilot can drift, and how long it actually takes Jester to say any of the commands that Jester is trying to tell you, because he's got a lot of flavor text in that regard, he tends to lag behind your actual position for the human Wizzo, where they could anticipate the general movements of your aircraft to let you know if you're charging the boom, if you're moving, getting ready to fall off the boom, or anything along those lines. I'll put it back on an AP hold here for a minute. Because on the F-4, your air refueling port is behind the cockpit centerline. It is out of the way enough that as a pilot, you can look up through the top of the glass and follow the lights that are telling you how to fly. But the Wizzo's responsibility in the back seat is generally to look up and keep an eye on where the freaking boom is, and whether or not it is, at its limits in one space or another. Try and help the pilot get on top of where it needs to be to refuel with the jet. Which all sounds very fine and dandy, except when Jester is 30 plus seconds behind giving you instructions, and you're trying to do what you need to do in response to those instructions, you'll be behind as well, and then you just end up chasing the boom the whole afternoon long. So when it comes to refueling with Jester in the back seat, broadly I will tell him to shut his mouth as I approach the tanker, and then just fly the lights. Do it as if I was flying an F-16 or something similar, where I don't have somebody to help me out, and just fly the lights without his input. Alright, we're going to come into land, pushing the seat up. We're going to adjust our trim here in just a second. Flaps are coming down, the gear is down. Now if I'm flying this right and I'm on AOA, you should hear a very solid tone, and the AOA indicator that's down towards the bottom next to the attitude ball, just to the left of it and just right of the master arm switch.
1,000. All right, gear, flaps.
It should be right in that little white zone there on the far right, and it would be a continuous beep if we're on AOA. At least proper procedure with the F-4 as far as everything they show you in the manuals and all that. You do raise the seat to its maximum extent so you can look down the nose, as your angle of attack, if you're on speed and everything else, will be quite high, and the nose could block your view.
500. 300.
We are very floaty. Thankfully, we have an drogue chute.
100.
Drogue chute deployed.
Hoo-wee! Have you been practicing?
I should have caged the upper sight too. There's some things there with DCS where, depending upon who it is you're talking to or what it is you're doing, I've actually got an ad break up at the moment, so I'm actually going to give this a minute before I talk through this one. It's kind of funny that it would time itself that way, but here we are. Alright, let's go ahead and dispense with the drogue. Yes, I am absolutely using Track IR. Some folks like flying in VR, and it's extremely immersive for them. Nothing against VR at all. It's certainly a beautiful way to experience the game. But for myself, I tend to use Track IR. Mostly it's because it's compatible with a lot of the other games I play too, including some of the first-person shooters and things that have head tracking. It's good stuff there. Okay, so the ad break's ended for the folks that were caught up in it. Go back to what I was kind of waxing about here as we're coming into land. Some folks will get on about, oh, well, you know, this is modeled in DCS or that's not modeled in DCS or what have you. I do try whenever I can to refine what I'm doing to be more in line with actual procedures for the same reasons. Like, it might have been consumed by the ad break, but I had mentioned that might have mentioned, but might have gotten eaten by the ad break, and that's caging the pipper. As on landing, sometimes the forces are sufficient that it should break that one, and procedure-wise, they're like, yep, you should always have it in cage or standby or off. Close the shutter on it so that it doesn't get damaged. I try and fly as best I can for things like that, with that sort of procedure. Mostly because I remember the incident with the Huey. When the Huey first came out, they didn't model exhaust gas temperature. So a lot of folks, when they were flying the Huey, they would just redline it and be on their way. You know, the bullpups were okay, but I'm actually going to trade them out for more bombs. Absolutely more bombs. Mavericks are alright. I think we'll bring up some 82s on the special pylons. For more bombs.
Request refueling.
Right, we got a minute while that's reloading.
Request rearming.
But anyway, yeah, they didn't model EGT on the Huey when the Huey was first released, and then all of a sudden they modeled EGT in an update. So everybody who was used to flying the aircraft and just redlining it to take off were suddenly bursting into flames shortly after lifting, or even before lifting if they were sufficiently heavy. So, you know, I try not to get into bad habits where I can. I try and fix bad habits as I find them. Varying degrees of success there, but something to keep in mind from time to time is, if it's not modeled today, that doesn't mean it won't be modeled tomorrow. And if you're in the habit of flying the aircraft in a way that would normally damage it, and it's just not modeled in there right now, and then someday it is, don't complain if you start breaking your own jet. Yeah, I've heard of certain free versions of TrackIR type software. A couple of the names escape me on it because I've used TrackIR branded software for longer than I care to admit. But TrackIR does seem to be the best. Extremely smooth, very precise. A lot of different things you can do to tweak it to make it work. I do use the infrared repeater that's attached to my headset. That is shining back towards the actual sensor rather than like the little stripes you put on like a baseball cap, that kind of deal. It does make it interesting if somebody turns on a light like behind my head, because that'll throw off the sensor. There's like AI track. There's one Tomy is or Tubi or something like that sticks in mind as a name. I forget exactly what it's called. There's a few little programs out there like that. But for $120 to $150 for the Track Clip Pro and the TrackIR sensor together. Toby, there we go. Thank you, Limitless Factor. Appreciate it. That one has always worked really well for me. The equipment is very durable. They tend to last a good long while, and the quality is there. Understanding that there are needs for every budget and a budget for every need. Nevertheless, I still like TrackIR. All right, another funny quirk with the F4 is she tends to refuel pretty quick, up to about 10,300 pounds, and then she slows way down on the refueling end of it. Down here doing ground refueling, it tends to be slow right around 9,000 pounds. If you've been up for a little while, or if you're out there doing air refueling and you're trying to be quick to let people get on, get the gas they need for a fight, and then be out, you might consider disconnecting manually around 10,000 pounds rather than pushing for a full 12. Oh yeah, no, absolutely. If you don't have the resources for it, you got to do what you got to do. And AI track or open track or Toby or whatever else it is you find, as long as you can tweak it and make it work for you, that's really the important part. A basic kitchen knife from your convenience store of choice is going to do the same kind of cutting job as a fancy multi-$100 actual chef's knife, but the chef's knife might do it, with greater ease or greater durability or whatever. We fly the F4 quite a bit with Pantheon. Fenrir, my flight that I run in particular, more or less mainlines a lot of the land-based aircraft there, which at the moment includes the F4. Personally, I'm an F-15E driver myself. I like that aircraft a lot. It's just sad that the current state of RASBAM is so heartbreaking with respect to DCS right now. I have spent a bit of time in the back seat of an F4 doing things in this aircraft. I like doing that a lot. It just sometimes tends to be a little more efficient for Trigger and I, who do most of the F4 flying in Pantheon, to take two aircraft up rather than one aircraft with two seats. I don't know of any actual squadrons that are recruiting F4 Wizzos in particular. With PI, we do tend to fly quite a bit of everything. We've got a group of boys that like jumping on and do nothing but helicopter type stuff. We've got an F-16 driver that likes doing primarily sea type missions. it's not restrictive in that regard. You can fly literally whatever you want, whenever you want, but you know, it's not a single platform squadron or anything along those lines like some groups tend to be. Almost refueled. Strike Eagle has a very special place in my or in my heart rather, as I grew up as a very, very young person on Nellis, and I was old enough to be cognizant of what the world is during the first Gulf War. And since it was pre-9/11, you know, occasionally the school on base would take field trips and things out to like the flight line, all that good stuff, and you know, getting to talk with some of the folks that are out there, or occasionally if they had a jet in maintenance, they, you know, it was a different time. And they could let you get away with sitting in the jet for a second if you're out on like a school thing and hanging out with pilots and things like that. I don't know, I guess in some way it's almost like recruitment for the Air Force at an extremely young age for that period of time, but, you know, good stuff. But yeah, Strike Eagles very much had a special place in the heart for a very, very long time. Cell phones is going to be the big one there too, because, you know, in those days the only way you could take pictures if you had an actual camera. Smartphones were not a thing. Even basic cell phones were not really a big thing by that time frame, unless you count the Zach Morris cell phone, which was also dating myself for my age. Giant brick of a cell phone with 20 minutes of battery life. Definitely don't need to War Thunder state secrets all over the place. That's bad for everybody. But close to my second favorite aircraft on the list there is definitely the F-4. I got to see those things, and in Boy Scouts, one of my assistant scoutmasters was a backseater in an F-4 during the last few years that they were around before retirement in like '96. So a lot of good stories and things there. I'm very much a heavy fighter fan. I'm not opposed to the F-16. I'm not opposed to the F-18. The F-14 is a beautiful and probably one of the most photogenic aircraft in the history of aircraft. But I like putting the work in with this one for sure. Plus, I like teamwork, and the less capable your own individual platform is, the more you get to rely on your friends to help make things happen. So I like working with the helicopters to attack a ground objective, and Beamer has many times designated things on the ground for me with the disco ball and the Kiowa, or, you know, talked me onto things in the Huey or the Hip or the Gazelle, and had me blow things up on purpose. Love it. Multi-crew and teamwork are the two things I like most about DCS. High on the list of things that I hate about DCS is the fact that Nick Gray seems to be more important about buying more of his warplanes and paying John Razbam. I think Razbam deserves their money. And that whole spat is kind of ridiculous and has really taken the wind out of DCS for a lot of players. Especially the whole kerfuffle with their initial release, and the 15 or 20 minutes you could buy the F-15 module for like $10 because they screwed up the pricing on it. It's not a good time with what they're doing with that right now.
I'm showing nails 10 o'clock.
I also wish they spent a little bit more time upgrading some of their core mechanics, which I know doesn't make them a whole lot of money in the grand scheme of things right out the gate, but this mission editor is roughly the same and with roughly the same capabilities in a lot of ways as it's been for 20-something years since Flanker 2. and lock on modern air combat. And it makes it clunky, sometimes difficult to work with. It's got a lot of nuances that aren't easily explained in any kind of a document for building missions. So the folks that make truly good single-player campaigns, hats off. I tend to work mostly in multiplayer type missions because, you know, I like flying with the group. So I do a lot of the mission building.
We've got mud, 11 o'clock.
And since we are so varied in what everything does, like it's a definite balance to try and make helicopter stuff and fixed wing stuff both work and play well together with the platforms that people enjoy. You know, like one of the last patches we've had recently, DCS finally gave the mission editor the ability to click, drag, select, and move a bunch of things at the same time. You know, that's real 2004 technology there. They've also talked for several years now about Vulcan coming to DCS, and that being the kind of engine of choice that was supposed to be out with the supercarrier update that was going to give us voice over IP and a briefing room and the airboss station and everything else circa 2020. Some of those things we've gotten here. It's now 2025. And I realize too that developers will sometimes run into problems that will cause delays. I'm not mad about delays in general, but the way that they've communicated lately, the way that they've kind of advertised, like, oh yeah, we got this whole new high-res skin texture update for the F-5 that is usually free for aircraft like that, but we're going to charge you money for it. I don't really feel like that's in a good spot. If you're going to start doing things like that, I would just as soon have you guys charge me a subscription fee, and I'll just pay that every month to play my flights in.
Is good. That's a friend.
Dynamic campaign, exactly. They promised that one some time ago. A lot of it was supposed to be hinging on Vulcan being a thing, and then it wasn't. Supercarrier was once upon a time the graveyard for updates. It's gotten some nice ones lately, what with the, the plane directors to get you onto the catapult, and then
I'm showing nails 10 o'clock.
some of the stuff for like fog and wet weather, and finally putting the F-14 and things in there for better interaction with the LSO platform, that kind of thing. But those are all things that they promised years ago, and seeing that kind of a delay is an issue. Plus, for those who haven't been playing DCS for very long, there was a point where the Kuznetsov... yeah, there's a Discord for Pantheon Initiative. Let me go ahead and... Actually, if you're here watching, can you grab the invite link and post that in the chat for me? No, actually, I will not let you do that. I'll let think about it.
There's no IFF return. He's got to be hostile.
But let me grab the invite link here. Yeah, it's not going to let you post there in the chat there, Chief. There we go. That is copied, and it's just pasting the damn text. All right, try doing this a different way.
We've got a friendly KC-135, 10 o'clock, 12 miles.
Squirt, you are being very temperamental with me right now, and I do not like it. And I don't want to invite you to the admin room. Stupid, stupid thing. Alright, Chief, just copy and paste that one to me real quick and I'll paste it in the channel. If you would, please. Send it to me direct. I've been with DCS a long time as well. I was here when it was Lock-On Modern Air Combat, and I played Flanker 2 when I was younger. All the same company, all the same thing. Thank you, Chief. That will work. There you go. There's the PI's Discord channel. Back to our regularly scheduled chaos. We're going to drop some bombs, and we'll start with our 82s. Yeah, I wish they would pay a little more attention to upgrading their core, giving it some better functionality, getting the dynamic campaign stuff actually going. Really what DCS needs is a competitor, like an actual competitor. War Thunder does not count. Falcon BMS does not count. But I feel like if they actually had a little bit of good competition, it would at least inspire them to take care of their core product a little better. Add in functionality that other groups are, lauding about, and not rely on people using scripting to get around their very, very bad switches and toggles and other commands that are built into the mission editor. They really do have the corner of the market. I love the fact that these cockpits on these full fidelity aircraft are fully clickable, that they mimic the real systems on the jet. No train yard saved. Good work, Copperhead. That means I will press on to a different objective, which will probably be the FARP capture. And instead of the 82s, I'm going to use the heavier bombs from much higher altitude.
Okay. Diversion steering set.
As I am aware that there is an SA-8 down there, among other gun platforms. So if somehow among the 34 people, Big Nui or 9-line slash Sith Spawn is out there doing their thing, locking threads at every point that you can possibly find it, do me a huge favor, bring it back to your overlords that you guys need to focus a little more on your core mechanics, and you should probably pay Razbam what they're owed. The only reason why I haven't really been flying the F-15 a whole lot is it's kind of in that only a matter of time with each passing update before something catastrophic happens that it becomes broken and unflyable. Or worse, goes the way of the Bay Hawk or the F-5. Oh, those are kind of rough fates. Alright, so we got our river delta there. That's where the train yard objective was. And where we're going is a little further north. So far our alignment is not awful. So the waypoint is still broadly pointing to where we need it to go. We'll probably have to do an INS update on the way home though. Like, I'm also one that plays Star Citizen and enjoys all of those kinds of things. So, like, I'm used to feature creep, dev time happening, new challenges coming up to cause things to slow down. Like, all of those things, it happens. That's not something that I'm ever going to be mad about. I just need good communications from the company taking care of things. And if you're going to promise a time, either do your best to meet it or provide me the reasons why you aren't. A little bit of transparency goes a long way in assuaging the fears that you guys just aren't ignoring stuff, you know? But for those who've watched or followed or done anything with the videos on the channel, you know my closing usual mantra there for that. Of always asking for consent, try to communicate as best you can with your partners, and try to be genuinely decent human beings. Communication is pretty pivotal and key. God, it's a pretty aircraft. It's a pretty map too. I do like the peninsula a lot. Some of it is a little bit of nostalgia. One of the flight sims that I played as a much younger person was Microprose's F-19, which I'm not advocating as a, you know, a true representation of stealth aircraft of any kind. But the hardest difficulty maps on that one all took place in the peninsula. Okay, somewhere down here through this cloud is our FARP that we're looking to try and recapture by blowing up everything else. It is adjacent to a kind of trapezoidal shaped lake. Yeah, I can see that. Falcon 1.0 for the Atari ST was one that I played a lot too. I am quite happily an old man. Older. I'm sure there's a lot of folks out there still doing this nonsense that are older than myself, my father included, but as far as the average gamer goes, I know I'm on the older end of the spectrum now. Alright, our target's through the cloud. This giant puffy mass of water droplets and other particles is between us and a good line of sight to our target.
Mud, 11 o'clock, SA-8. Unable.
Okay, yep, there's a FARP. Got some vehicles tucked around it. I think the first ones I'm going to look at, though, are those ones that are offset, kind of towards the top of the frame, as they are likely the bad boys who could kill me. Yep, there's the SA-8. I'm going to have to be a little quicker about this so I can get out of his range.
Captured.
Come on, Pipper. Don't free float like me like that. There we go. Ripple pair. Down to 10,000 feet. That's not good. Was that close enough? It might have been. It might have been. Adjust my trim here a little bit while we're up at a much more comfortable and a little... Oh. Hopefully that didn't pop my chute out. Nope, I apparently didn't reset the handle until I was on the ground, so we're good. We're going to go and just go and take a quick peek down here, since we got everybody on for the show. And yeah, that's very much a dead SA-8. The tank is not dead. But that is one of our higher threat systems, keeping me from getting in nice and low to take a look and see what's going on. Checked off the list. How far away does it say I am? 3 miles? It should be a lot closer. There's the trapezoid lake. There's our FARP and our burning vehicle. Good times. Let's go and attack another group.
Heads up, nails, 6 o'clock, and nails, 6 o'clock.
There's some other dots that are offset, kind of above and right of that FARP. I think we're going to drop some bombs there in that vicinity. And I think I'm going to drop 4 on this pass. I'm still a little worried about man pads and gun platforms, so I don't want to get super, super low. But they don't have the reach that the SA-8 had. We should be able to get in a little closer. Alright, let's hook it.
Okay, captured.
Good job, Jester. And button pressed. Ripple 4. Climb back up to the relative safety of altitude in the clouds. Bombs hit, but there may not have been anything there to kill. Try and get some eyes on it and assess it from up here rather than using the fun camera and going down to look at the site itself. There's another SA-8 operating in the vicinity. Want to be mindful of where he's at. Alright, just have to put our trust in there that we managed to kill any of the lighter targets there. They just might not be exploding. As I know there's some gun platforms in that vicinity, and some man pads and infantry kind of scattered about. So, hopefully a little blast frag has dissuaded them from thriving at life there.
And captured.
Some tracers coming up. Good bomb impacts. More tracers coming up. Alright, we're going to try and roll in on those tracers.
And captured.
Hold those for up. We're hit. We're hit. We're hit. Yep. Still a man pad down there. That was close. How bad is it? Oh, that's very bad. That's losing parts. Yeah, it's losing parts. I probably should not have gotten quite that low without verifying that I had killed whatever was there. That said, though, we are 2 hours and 30 minutes in on our stream. Usually I run about 3 hours or so for these. But since that's kind of buttoned up against actual sortie time for there and back again, I think we're going to call that a little bit early, and I will make a time for lunch. But I definitely want to thank everybody for coming up here to view and keep track of things today. Just going to go through our quick little spiel here for the ending credits and the rest of our stream times here for the week. We have, as of today, it is Saturday, so we do DCS Saturday, Pilum Teaches DCS. We did a little bit of air-to-air type stuff earlier today with the jet, and you guys joined the raid like right as soon as I started, so fantastic there on that one. Thank you. As far as the rest of the schedule goes, Monday we're going to be doing DCS for fun with the boys there on Monday night at 6 Pacific. I follow up with that on classic games at 9 p.m. The last couple of weeks I have not been on the stream, but that's been because of the holidays, so we're going to get right back into that and continue on with our playthrough of Dark Sun 2, Wrath of the Righteous. And then Friday we have Arma 3 at 6 p.m. I don't know if we're actually doing Arma this week because we just finished the Star Wars game last night. So that VOD will be, well, the VOD is up, but it'll be on YouTube here sometime later on this week for that playthrough, for that finish up. But we got some other things we're going to be doing with that, maybe some Halo type stuff with some of the mods lists that we're using on that one. So we'll see how that one goes. So we might do Helldivers or something else instead for a couple of weeks there on Friday nights, but we'll see how that plays. And then Saturday again, we're back to Pilum Teaches DCS, so should be a good time had by all. And I appreciate all the follows, all the subscribes, everybody coming in to watch today. All of it very much helps. If you have Amazon Prime and you want to spend your subscription money here on that one for free, I very much appreciate it, but it's not required. If you'd prefer to donate a little more directly, you can donate at coffee.com/PilumJRamar. I will use that money for coffee purposes. But again, it's not required, it's not necessary. Thank you, I appreciate that. But if you do it, thank you very much for it. You can catch this and other VODs on the YouTube channel at @PilumRamar. I do a lot of classic gaming, a lot of DCS gaming mostly. Every once in a while I'll play something different too, like either Star Citizen or Wolfpack or something, and stream it and put it up. So feel free to jump in on all of that. Since we are wrapping up for now, always ask for consent, try to communicate as best you can with your partners, and try to be genuinely decent human beings. I will catch up with you next time, and thank you for watching. Pilum out.